Today I'm here with Bill Joyce, who has over 15 years of experience in real estate, and he's the author of Conscious Home Buying. I'm very excited. Thank you, Bill, for being here with me.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. I'd love to talk about many things, but let's firstly talk about how you relate with your clients and how you relate with your clients in terms of body language, reading them, because you have so much experience, and a lot of it is intuitive, and a lot of it, I'm sure, reading them is conscious. So you have conscious and unconscious reading your clients. I'd love to hear how you interpret their body language, their facial expressions, their voice tones, and how it helps you as a real estate agent.
Okay. Well, and I think intuitive is a good word in that I've observed people and their body language without necessarily thinking of it as observing their body language. I mean, I've just thought it as reading people. So I wasn't as perhaps as deliberate as I might have been, but there really is a lot that you can read from clients. I have worked a lot with buyers. I've always liked working with buyers. I've worked with both sellers and buyers, but I've always thought of buying a house as the bigger job. You're making far more decisions and a far bigger commitment than selling. Selling is more straightforward, a simpler process to me. The hard work is done up front. At least that's how I've always felt. And so when I would meet with clients, in most cases, I would just meet with a client at a house. I have found that most buyers hide, behind the internet as they dip their toe in the water, as they start learning a little bit about buying a house and what they might like and how much they can afford. And they do research and try not to get on radar, try not to be, because they see real estate agents as salespeople. And they don't want to be sold. They don't want to be persuaded into buying a house. They're exploring it. But eventually, buyers that are serious, if it progresses, they're going to pop up and want to see a property. That's typically how it unfolds. And
so when they want to see a property, do they call you, or do you meet them when they come to an open house, or how does that happen?
Open houses are common. I've done a number of open houses, but most of the marketing I had done was online with people that were searching for properties. So I would meet them at a property, and I would usually try and make it 2 or 3 properties for a first meeting, which would give us enough time to meet and slowly get to know one another. I found that initial meeting, when they're out of their element, unlike a seller, you're at their house when it's a seller, so that's their domain. But when they're either in your office or meeting at a house, that's unfamiliar territory. So it can be a little bit intimidating, and they're also afraid of who you might be as a salesperson in particular, if this is going to be uncomfortable. So there's a cautiousness I have found with lots of buyers on those initial meetings. So I found from a body language perspective, there's the connection between me and a client, or say, if it's a couple, it's each of them. One, how I come across, which you want it to be confident, but supportive and not imposing. You don't want to be, an intimidating presence. You want to be, customer care kind of presence, and you can read people. And I found usually in the beginning, you can read the apprehension when they're meeting somebody new in an unfamiliar place. And since I would schedule it where there's some time to get to know each other, just through the questions and the interactions that we have, you can see a relaxing, where they've begun to feel confident that this is not a threatening set of circumstances, that you're not going to try and make them sign and write an offer on that house right now. And you can usually read how people relax into that, which is a really important first step, is just to establish that rapport.
Absolutely.
And pick up on that.
everybody wants to be seen and heard. And when you help them feel that way, when you do see them and hear them, it's very helpful, verbally and non-verbally.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think a part of an initial meeting, while they've avoided it for a long time, they need the help of an agent. There's really almost no escaping. It's hard to buy a house without a real estate agent, because if you refuse to get one, you'll be working without one, who means that the seller's agent will be representing you in some fashion, and then you don't. It's a question of now loyalty. So there's almost, because real estate is very few for sale by owners relative to the bulk of the market, it's almost impossible to not engage with an agent to buy a house.
And
So that's
this is the biggest purchase most of us make in our lives. And
yes.
I find it remarkable that this huge purchase is often made with seeing the house once. That's a huge responsibility, and it's so nice to have support of an agent that understands me. My son just bought a house. He had an agent that was fantastic. She really enjoyed a new home buyer because he didn't even know what to look for. So she was saying some people, she really sits back and lets them look. With my son, she pointed things out to help educate him. So I guess that's something you have to read as well. Is it an experienced home buyer or an absolutely new one that's never done any home repairs at all and doesn't even know what to look for?
Right. You definitely want to be reading the level of involvement. I tended personally to prefer taking a low key, letting people see a property themselves. They don't need me to point out the kitchen. There's some tricks we can teach you. That's the one with the stove, right? I mean, it's like, I don't want to escort you through the house unless you want me to. And I've always found, and then I'd be very responsive, but I would want them to ask the questions. And I found oftentimes the less I directed things, their natural, and they started feeling confident, they would start asking things. They would start feeling safer. So rather than me asking, well, what are you looking for? Where are you from? And grilling, it often feels that way. And you can tell when people are feeling that way. I found in most instances, once people start relaxing into it, they're now seeking you. And when you sense that they're wanting to get your opinion on something, or what do you think about these areas, or whatever, and this is the intuitive part. I don't know that I really had identified that dance, in essence, where there's chasing and being chased kind of thing, and the clients don't want to be chased by salespeople. But they do want to be helped by experts. And a lot of times in the beginning, allowing them their own interest and needs to drive the relationship a little bit, to drive them to you, is really helpful.
And once you're experienced at noticing what are called microexpressions, flashes of expressions that come through, you can address things before they become an issue. Or you probably know when they have a question brewing in their mind and they haven't asked it yet. You notice it,
right,
to draw out the question, so they're the ones that are presenting it to you, like you said, so that you're not grilling them.
Right. Exactly. And you can see that. You can the confusion, and you can tell they're formulating some thought that they want to share, either with you or with each other. And that's the other part. I found that the nonverbal communication that happens between couples, and oftentimes it's normal nonverbal communication, and sometimes it's a deliberate nonverbal communication, because they're not sure who I am, that they don't want to share secrets, in essence, at least early on, until they get a feeling of confidence. So trying to read what they're saying to one another, what they're thinking, and that is a tremendously complex part of a real estate purchase, is helping people understand what it is they want and need in a house purchase. And I make the distinction between a house and a home. A house is the box, and you can buy one of those. And a
Yeah.
home is a place with the people in your life experience life. And that can happen in a house or an apartment or whatever, but it's a much bigger concept than a house. I think people believe they are buying a home, that they are buying the happiness that they envision in that house, and they're not. They're buying a box. They're buying the house itself. The rest of it they have to create. So helping understand, and helping them understand what it is they really want and need is a big challenge. So watching how they behave, how they interact with you, with each other, with the property, can tell you an awful lot. So
I love the
when
title of your book, Conscious Home Buying, because I work with a lot of people, helping them become conscious of their feelings.
hmm
A lot of us are just driven by what we grew up with, what media says,
right,
and
right.
not aware of how we feel. In the book, you shared a story about your grandfather,
hmm
how you loved being with him and he had a couple of fruit trees, and how that shaped your decision as to what you wanted to buy.
hmm Ended up buying a 3-acre parcel, which had plenty of room to be able to plant stuff. And ended up, as soon as we got the place, over the course of probably the first year, I planted about 25 fruit trees, which is just absurd. Nobody can eat that much fruit. I was a small orchard, and we could have been selling fruit, except I didn't grow. I had this fantasy, I had this image from childhood. I mean, it's so from a psychology text kind of thing, and
So,
this wonderful image of how I imagined myself, and then bringing the kids out. I couldn't get the kids out there. They didn't want to go picking fruit. That was apparently my deal, or it was the relationship I had with my grandfather, or who knows. So part of reading people is understanding what it is that they want and need, and the cues, picking up on the cues as they look around. Some people just go straight to the backyard when they go see a house, and somebody else will go straight to the kitchen or the bedrooms, or and people give you clues that they might not even be aware of the priorities in their lives. I think we buy a lot of things um, just because we get an amount of money that we decide we're willing to spend, or the bank tells us we can spend,
mhm.
and then we're going to go get the best one, that money can buy, and
But the
and
best
you
one
know
isn't necessarily the most nurturing one. Best, whatever best,
and what is
it's
best?
the most
What is
expensive.
best? Okay. The only way we buy stuff is usually by comparing one to the next. So you can get on Amazon and start comparing television sets, and
Yes.
how big it is, and how high definition it is, and the audio quality, or whatever. And you can read the reviews, and we're comparing, well, this one has this and this other one has that. And you're comparing the thing to the thing. If what you're trying to do is create a happy home, okay, well, just comparing house to house isn't going to do it. These are much more complex concepts. So would a smaller house close to work with a smaller mortgage give you more time, money, and energy to spend with your kids and travel and save for retirement? Or would you be happier in the big house in the suburbs with a long commute and financial stress of maxing out what the bank will lend you? Those are two very different lives.
Yes.
And when you're
And
buying a house,
yeah, it's kind of like, again, it's bringing it to consciousness. Are we choosing it because I was in a small house when I grew up and I wasn't happy. There was turmoil in my house. And my neighbor, from what I could see, my friend was in this big house and they seemed happy. Then you're trying to emulate someone else's life rather than
Hmm.
being in touch with your own.
What you think you want. Yeah,
Yes.
I thought I would like gardening, and it had a big house with lots of room to plant. It
Me
turns
too.
out I don't like gardening.
I,
That's a,
I tell people that I had my guys when I moved into this house dig up a whole bunch of grass. I was working from home. I thought, you know what? I'm going to do some gardening. I hate it so much. All I grow, I'm an expert at growing weeds. That's what I grow. So the front, I make
there's
sure
I
it's okay. The back is only weeds.
well, and so what? How do you help now a client? You're with somebody looking to buy a house, and they love that house with the beautiful garden. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Um, uh, but I've seen lots of people very motivated to buy those houses that a year later they're just a mess. They're growing weeds because they imagined, as I did, that I would enjoy gardening. So I think
How do
when
you
buying,
how do you bring up that to consciousness for them? Do you
we
just say
start having
how
conversations
much
about,
it costs to have someone maintain the yard or and help them put it?
well, do you like gardening? What do you garden now? Have you ever gardened? Did your mom make you go pull weeds when you were a kid? How was that? Was that, y- you know, was it something you enjoyed, making the flower bed look nice the way your mom liked it, or was it actually kind of a pain?
Yeah.
I have these moments that I remember, growing a vegetable garden one year with my mom. She and I did this, which is a great memory. And then the time with my grandfather, picking fruit in off of his fruit trees. And those moments have created some pretty powerful feelings, but they're not me necessarily. They're wonderful memories, but I wouldn't want it. So I would think, with clients, trying to read what's appealing to them, but understanding there's a difference between, the fact, the values that people currently have, and the fantasy, the values that, who they wish they were. And we can all join a gym, right? That's because we want to be fit, and we can all invest in who we want to be, but then you have to show up. You have to get up early and go to the gym, and otherwise it doesn't, just joining isn't enough to do any good.
Right.
So the house is the same sort of way. One, understanding, helping people get to how they really live. People that don't cook a lot, wanting that super big kitchen. If they're not into cooking, then they're spending money on the beautiful kitchen as a showpiece, and
Yeah.
that's okay if that's where their values lie, because parties end up in the kitchen. But it may not be the best use of resources. They may be better off putting their money into a house closer to a good school because they're really into their kids and education and want to prepare them for what have you. So it's reading how people respond as they're looking at houses can tell you an awful lot. They migrate to the things they think are important. So helping them and with two people with different histories on money and different visions of what home is and what a happy home looks like,
That's a big
trying
thing.
to have some,
And bring them together.
it's huge, which is one of the reasons I interview, I'm out of the real estate world interviewing financial planners, marriage and family therapists, career advisors, life coaches, different people, life advisors of a variety of sorts, on how can we reinvent this? Because what we do, and what I've done, is you go compare houses and you go look at 15 to 20 houses and in the range that the bank says you can afford, and then you spend it and get the one you like the best. That's just inadequate. That is, one, borrowing all a bank will lend is just a mistake. That's the max. That's not how much you can afford. But people think they're having a conversation about what they can afford. They're not. The bank is saying, well, we'd be willing to lend up to this, but no more, because we don't think you'd be able to pay any more than that back.
Right.
That's very different than, you can afford 400,000. People assume they're going to like it. That's a reasonable amount for me. And banks aren't worried about you being happy. They're worried about lending money, and you want to borrow. So here's how much you can. Your happiness is up to you in that decision.
Right. Right. I love that. So how do you present yourself with confidence and friendliness without being intimidating? How tall are you, by the way?
5'11".
Okay, so average height.
Kind of an average height, yeah.
I was training some leaders at a credit union the other day, and one man he must be 6'5". I say, how do you meet with clients? I mean, his hand is huge. When he went to shake my hand, he says, I always give people more space than other people would necessarily. I'm little, maybe
right.
5'3". I can be close to somebody and not intimidate them.
Right.
So I imagine that if you have someone who's little, you give them a little more space. If someone's tall like you can get a little closer in terms of proximity.
I actually tend to give people a lot of space. Even though I don't know that size is, I'm sort of in the middle, and I don't know that size is, one, being too close to somebody is obviously uncomfortable when you're in their space, and that's in the extreme form of it. But I would tend to lean back or stay back and allow clients to go explore. My belief is that buyers, they hide in the internet until they really want to see something, and then they're willing to venture out and risk what might happen when that salesperson shows up. So my belief was there's this subtle expectation that you're going to try and sell them.
Yes.
So I would try and be the opposite of that, and almost, and not really, but to make the point, almost unavailable. Just sort of like they'd have to come find me if they had a question, as opposed to, I remember the first house my wife and I purchased. I felt like if I stopped short, she would bump into me, the agent.
Wow.
Because she was like right there behind you. So if I stopped suddenly, boom, I like train cars, and I didn't care for that, and it was, she wanted to show me where the kitchen was. And, okay, go find the kitchen.
You wanted to see the backyard.
Yeah, and I'm on my way to the backyard anyhow. So, it's been my belief that it's better to just a little bit, I don't want to make it too extreme, just overcompensate and let people have the space and freedom, and then come up with questions and want to come ask you them, and them running on their own volition, as opposed to you there encouraging them to come up with a question or making them answer your questions.
Yes.
I found, people run best when they're running on their own steam, when their motivation is what's making them drive the interactions. And it's a subtle thing, but you can usually tell. You can usually tell when it's feeling the other way, when they're feeling a little imposed upon.
Yeah.
You can sense that, and when you sense that, it's time to back off. It's time to give them the space and make yourself less available.
Yes.
And those are really powerful cues to pick up on. And it's that's a dance that goes throughout the relationship. It evolves, but in the beginning, it's, I think, particularly sensitive, because they're expecting a very specific thing to be happening, which is you selling them.
Yes, I love your book, the Conscious Home Buyer.
Home buying.
Conscious Home Buyer.
Just home buying.
I think it's useful for agents to read as well as buyers. And if someone wanted to buy the book, where would they go?
Actually, right now it's new, and I'm giving it away just to get it out there. So go to conscioushomebuying.com and give an email address and I'll send you the ebook for free. So,
Fantastic. Now, if someone wants to work with you, because you are a real estate agent, where are you located?
well, actually, I'm in Sacramento, but I'm working now on a national basis teaching and coaching. So I'm advising and helping people that are thinking about buying a house, one, decide if, this is really the right time to buy a house, if this is in their best interest, and then align their values in life towards buying a house that's going to be good for them, that's going to help them achieve whatever their goals are. Buying the best house usually, and most people, they borrow all the bank says they can afford, which is not what they can afford, and they discover the new life that they didn't know they were buying into. Because when you commit too many houses, too much resources to a house, time, money, and energy are these resources we have to do whatever we value. So you buy the big expensive house out in the suburbs. Well, you've just given up a lot of time, and you're drained when you get home. So you picture these wonderful, afternoons hanging out in the backyard with the kids and what have you, and you're just tired, and you're stressed for money. So it's very easy to misallocate resources to buy what you think you want and undermine what you truly value. And that I think that's an epidemic in America today. I would say divorce, leading cause of divorce is probably poor home choice. And not that it's diagnosed that way. Usually people talk about just
stress. Yes.
the stress, these hard lives we live. Well, we live hard lives because we make choices that make them hard. And overspending on a house is one of the big decisions that's going to change your life. So
if I'm a buyer, then I can reach out to you and contact you. And then what would I expect? Maybe 2 sessions with you? 3 sessions? What normally happens? Because
this is a new direction for me. The book I just finished the book, and thank you. It was harder than I thought it would be. I've spent years trying to create a process out of this, and I ended up with reams of notes on things to do and not do, and it was just I was overwhelming myself, just because this is so big and it impacts everything in your life. And so I've spent the past 6 months now taking years worth of work and boiling it down to a simpler process. So the sessions I have, one are online courses. I've created a number of videos in addition to the book, and I have group coaching at theintentionallivingschool.com. You can join in and we can chat. And I also help people hire an agent, and this is
I love that.
And helping hire an agent and helping the agent understand this values-based approach to choosing a home so that you're getting supported. The interesting thing with an agent is, that's an employee for a buyer. Essentially, they work for you. But it doesn't always feel like that. It feels like they're selling you, or at least there are a variety. Some are, and there's lots of great agents out there. But I can help position that relationship so that you get the best support for the things that you value, and you're not going to be, steered away from what means the most to you in your life. So I work with clients, and that actually doesn't cost anything. If I help you find an agent in the real estate business, there are referral fees having me help you manage an agent doesn't cost a buyer. So I think that's probably the most valuable service I offer.
Oh,
I'm getting
yeah.
Okay, I'm getting a message saying I'm offline here, but you can still see me?
Yes, I can. I can see you, hear you. We're still recording, so it's good.
Okay.
But it's just a sign from the universe that we ought to sign off. But I will put links to what you said underneath the video. And
okay, good.
Thank you very much for being with me today and sharing your experience.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.